Hey everybody, guess who it is? It's me, on the camera. I think I got my camera thing set up. I want to test it out. If it goes okay, maybe I'll stick with it. If not, I will get rid of it. I don't even know how the quality of the video will be, if it gets choppy or not, so I apologize beforehand. Oh my god. Oh my god, hold on. Now I gotta take this. I gotta pause the whole show. Well, that was deep throat again. And we're talking about the CMMB. Well, anyway, holding very strong here. Got the alert this morning. Actually, we were looking at it yesterday, and then you could actually see it held up pretty good this morning, so we got in it this morning. It's been moving up. It's spiked up, and now it's consolidated. And it's still under the radar. And it's just to look back at it, nothing other than, a momentum type of trade where you're trying to catch the right side of the move. I don't know much about the company. This is not a fundamental company. This is a bottom play, a momentum play. And what was good about this, even though it just came, came across our screens, if I was going to do just a chart look at it, I mean, it's actually a perfect divergence. And you don't see that too often in a cheap stock like this. So a really steep divergence there on the 9.3 with a lower low. So everything actually makes sense that it's moving. Is it moving because of the divergence, or is it, because we moved, it caused that? It's an interesting concept right here on a cheap stock like this. I love how it works perfectly. There was even a slight divergence back over here too in July and August. And a nice pullback, and that had a decent move. Maybe 10 candles. So this looks pretty good. And it's holding up pretty good going into Friday afternoon, 2:30 right now. Paul's on the mic. I'm on the mic, but I'm doing the research. And again, we have two big events next week. CPI on Tuesday and the Fed FOMC rate decision on Wednesday. And it's so hard to, gamble ahead of that. We thought we knew what was going to happen today. I was kind of worried that we were going to just sell off after we got the number, and we kind of did sell off here. So let's actually take a look at the SPX here. I don't know, how's the you can see me do my push-ups now. I have my Coke. I don't know if you can see my Coke. There it is. And then I have like a green screen behind me, so you don't have to see all the stuff on the back table there behind me. So I'm looking at the S&P right now, and to me this is kind of bearish. The whole setup here, even this kind of consolidation the last 3 days, just going sideways. Everything's going to come up to that CPI. We have a hot CPI. Sayonara markets. Everyone's expecting it. It's going to be a self-fulfilling flush. I feel like it could happen at the end of the day here. So that's one of the reasons I took my calls off earlier. We got back a little, but it was down overall, and I ended up saying, all right, you know what? I'm just going to take what I have and move on, because I didn't really trust it. And I'm kind of glad I did now, because those things would have been just dissolved. So this is where we're, so it all comes down to Tuesday. Now there is a few stocks we're going to look at today, but when it comes down, look at this S&P 5-minute divergence right here. This is a big 5-minute divergence. Probably you could qualify it on that candle here, or at least that next candle. It didn't really get too further here. I'm not a big fan of this either way. This was our little consolidation that we broke out of, and you can see that we've been actually kind of riding the top there. So we extend that breakout area all the way back. We keep on coming back to it, bouncing off of it, bouncing off of it, bouncing off of it. A lot of things are lined up here for next week. We never, I'm still watching an overhead, the overhead trend line here. I was hoping that we were going to get up there and we were going to be able to short into that. We never got into that area. I'm sorry about that. I should turn off my volume on my phone. Then I missed the calls. Yeah, so we're right on that, and everything comes out to next pretty much the CPI next Tuesday. A few stocks ahead of that. You got let's just go over them one by one. Also take a look at some of the futures things. I got something new to kind of announce with you guys on the futures side of things, because there was so many great setups this week, and we could look back, and they're great educational pieces because you get to see them live. You get to see the chart set up live, and let me talk you through exactly how this is going to happen. And you see it happening, you see the reaction. It's just even looking at every chart now, every place I look, I see divergences. I could look, oh, there's a divergence. It's just now it's kind of a weird thing. So it's you see here, look at this low, and look at this spike low here, and how high the stochastics rotated back up, never came down. I mean, it's not much, but every time you get a divergence, it is what it is. It is upside. So we just had a divergence here. And it's off of that, that we'll call it the support line that was kind of a recent breakout area. And it's been holding up. So it's definitely starting to gain, some strength. The 60-minute divergence looks interesting. I mean, the 5-minute divergence looks interesting. The 60-minute time frame, not so interesting. This looks more bearish on the longer-term charts. So that's what we're looking at next week. And then, again, it'll be a shootout on Tuesday morning with the futures. And then, that's going to kind of determine what the Fed's going to do, too. If it's kind of hot, everyone's just going to look at the CPI. They're looking at the data just like the Fed is. So it's going to be a foregone conclusion after Tuesday. We talked about the CMMB. All right, that was the first one. The ADMA performing really good. It took off the option, still holding the stock. ADMA, another cheap one that maybe some people are still in. But that had its move this week. And it was a nice breakout, too. And it was a big reversal, too. It was the offering. They came out with preliminary earnings. I think they even guided higher, but they also snuck in a secondary on it, and it's kind of gapped down. And from the gap down, it just moved all the way up. And then after, the day of the reversal, it ended so strong, you're definitely expecting some follow-through on this. And it still looks really strong. I see $4 on this, very easy. Overall target on this is probably about $6. And that's over time. It gets back up there. This is a growth, starting to grow. The company's going to be profitable, they say, in the first part of this year. They're expanding. They got money, everything. They do blood plasma collection. When's the next disease or next plague that hits us that we're going to need plasma? The stock will be through the roof. All right, so we're just going to go back on the trade alerts today, or going into that, just kind of a little review here. So we'll go back here. We took Lululemon into the earnings, or after the earnings, it gapped down. I was able to look quickly on this when it was falling, and I said, all right, let's take a look at what is underneath us. And at the time, that first candle, at the time it was right on the 200-period moving average, that red line. And the first time a stock like this comes down to the 200-period moving average, it gets close to it, there's a reaction. All right? And we had a beautiful reaction. That was a big move down. So picked it up right off of about 333, I think I got in, 333. And if you can see the 5-minute chart here, it bounced. I didn't take it off. I held it overnight. Next morning, pre-market, got up. It was trading around 350. I just took it off before we had the PPI data, so I took it off. And good thing I did, because as you can see, the market sold off, and Lululemon sold off and never recovered. And you would think, well, you liked it the other day. Do you like it now? Absolutely not. No way. I only like it on the first touch. The breakdown now, it feels sick. I don't know. I don't like it. So I'm happy to get what we got on that one. And I had 10 shares. I got $169.44. We got whatever that came out, 13 points or something. I don't know what it was. Then we had the current, again, I'm looking at all my notes, not to mention the LIFE, lifetime coupon code. It ends tomorrow, so take advantage of it. LIFE. If you need help with that, contact RPM at DayTraderRadio.com. That's the only time it automatically turns off on Saturday. I don't know if that's Friday midnight or Saturday sometime. It just automatically says to the date. So I would say it's midnight Friday. All right, next one, we bought the SPYs, but we sold those today. We got into the pre-market trades have been acting really good. I missed some big ones. I shouldn't say we missed it. I think I feel like I'm a little responsible for missing some of the really big ones. But we did get this one. This was a nice one. PHVS. So, got in at 490, sold it at 6.25. Now you can see it went well over $10. So, yeah, I got a nice trade on it, but boy, that thing really did take off, and I got out way too early. That's so hard. That's the hard part of trading. The easy part is waiting for the setup. In this case, this was just a pre-market mover. We caught it early. Just sitting in front of the computer, news came out. This looks good, viable. Jump in, ride it, jump off. If it keeps on going, that's a decision you have to make at that point. But most of these, 80% of them, tend to come back from the, these are very, very rarely close at the highs. They pop early in the morning, then they send the drift most of the day. Sometimes bouncing off the 20-period moving average, sometimes not. But if you play it that way, you get in pre-market, you take that first bounce, and I usually just sell into that first pop of the open, because a lot of traders are still haven't traded. They can't trade pre-market. They have to wait until the market goes, and they all these traders. Kids, whoever they are, the Robinhood people, Reddit traders. For some reason, a lot of people don't trade pre-market. Some brokers don't allow it. And when the 930 area comes into play, all the orders seem to flood into these stocks that have been pre-market very, very strong. So that's a good, technique to look for, or at least to use, is to look for that strength pre-market going into the open, buying it and selling on the pop. We see that all the time. So that was a good one. Then I sold the ADMA. We talked about that. Let's see what else. So I ended up picking up some Tilray down here. TLRY. $365. It's $352. It's down a little. I like the pullback. It's oversold. I'm surprised that it pulled back this much. It's almost kind of like nerve-wracking to see it down this low. It's like, wow, people not putting anything to this one. It's not a discount back here. It was a nice move from $5 to $350. That's sweet. So that's where I like it, right here. But I didn't see any sign of a big reversal in this at all. Got the next one up here. We did a lot of SPY trading. I ended up getting into bingo again, BNGO, from a long time ago. We used to trade that during the pandemic days. It was one of those penny stocks that would go from 30 cents to $8 in a couple days, only to come all the way back down. As you can see, look at this. I remember being in this one like 90 cents, 70 cents. The thing went all the way to almost $15 within a couple months. And then look at where it's come all the way back down here. So I looked at it the other day. I said, it's hanging this trend line. We're heading up. Maybe I'll just take a shot on this. So I'm in a little on this. Not much, but just to keep it so I'm watching it. Here's one that's not performing well, is Tops. And, I remember when they came out and they did that offering and they just crushed the stock. And I picked it up here, into that weakness. 249. Well, look at 146 now. I have 300 shares. Still holding it. But boy, that's, these crap stocks, you got to get in and get out. And if it doesn't work, you might as well just move on. But some of them can work against you, so you got to be very careful on that. There's a couple other ones that I'm holding that you should be aware of. MD, GL, they're expecting top-line results, good or bad, in their drug before the end of the year. It's December. This could happen any day. It could happen next week. It's really coiled up here in a way where, you could see the compression of the price. Tried to break out the other day. I took more than half of my position. I took 25 shares off. I'm only holding 10, and it was kind of a gamble because this thing could drop 40 points on the bad results. It could pop 40 points. So I'd say my downside is $400 on this trade, maybe more, but at least it's not, if you have any amount, this thing's going to move. So maybe a good play for an option play, a nice straddle on this, because it should go both. Well, it's going to definitely go one direction in a big way. If you guys figured that one out, post it in the room. This week I also picked up UAMY, and seems to be holding the 20-period moving average. Very cheap stock, 42 cents. I picked it up at 46 cents. It's 42 now. It's just chopping around this level. I think it's an interesting one down here. Very interesting that it has a, it's under the radar still. And I like these ones that are starting to move up that are kind of under the radar. I hate to be the last one in. So I'm looking for this to pop us on this, and for us to get out on the pop and not be, even though we might be leading the charge, I'll be the first to bail. Because I'm already in. I'm in to win. In to win it. And let's see here. That was another one. Scopus is another one, another cheap one I got. And again, I don't like focusing on these cheap ones. I like to give you some good quality names, but I just want to make sure everyone's up to date on the Scopus here. And again, these are just flatliners that are just kind of under the radar. It started to get its move today. I'm still holding on to it right here. So there's, sometimes you get a pop in these. They could go 50%. This thing goes up to 30 cents, 35 cents. I mean, that's a big move, and it does it. It has those days. So down here, it does look attractive. We're actually starting to put a divergence in here, too, with that candle down here. So it's kind of interesting. All right, so that's it on the cheap ones. I have a few others, but we'll move on to the better stocks now. Also waiting on the futures here. There was a good, again, this is a good, beautiful 5-minute divergence. Even though it's on a 1-minute time frame, we can tell that because we're looking at the 60-10 down here, and look at how high that 60 is. And the 40 even too, and it actually made a mini divergence here. This was just a great setup here. Great setup. We're going to see how strong this divergence is. This divergence is strong. This should, maybe even kind of curl back up, and we'll have enough power to get through that VWAP above us, which is always, look at how strong that is. Going into next week, does the market have enough to rally today and kind of shake out the people who are taking positions? Kind of wonder if that's possible. We can get through this VWAP here. There was a nice divergence here. I didn't take any today. Messing with my software so much today. There was a little divergence there, and again, if you would have taken that divergence, you would take it off the first rotation up. So you get a couple points on this. You get it right up against the VWAP, and probably is, instead of hoping and praying, you take what you get. You get happy. Over the long run, it did come back down. It wasn't like you're going to try to, top it off with the perfect top trade. Very hard to do. So you're doing the right thing. Once you get above that 80, the odds are the rotation is going to continue in the favor of the bigger trend. In this case, you can see all the way back here a series of lower highs and lower lows. So every time you get overbought on the 9.3 above 80, is most likely you're going to get a little drag on you. I mean, it's just programmed in right now. So don't fight that. Embrace it and say thank you for the exit. When we have more of a choppy market or a trending market the other way, lots of times you'll see these in a downward trending market now. Those sell side divergences are going to be coming up. And here's kind of a shallow one right here, 130. The market came up, kind of dropped a little lower here, and then the market rolled over eventually with a series of lower highs. But again, that's kind of, you could be, I don't know if most people, you want something a little bit better. This is a pretty decent divergence right here. And again, that's obvious, right? Like, how is that a divergence? Well, look at the steepness between this. And again, I always say 80 should be our cutoff line. Keep it under 80. That's still pretty steep. I usually have an angle to this too. It's about 16 degrees. Anything over 10 degrees is usually really good. And then, of course, a nice pullback. And he probably got down, dropped off pretty fast. Almost put in a divergence. Chopped around. It was very choppy. Best thing to do, take the divergence, take the rotation, maybe put a break-even stop in. But most likely these markets coming into these waves and stuff are going to go back and get you. So it's always good to lock it in. This is half the key right here. This is the key. I am giving you the key. The key to success. It's all in your head. The setups are there. All you have to do is just manage the trade. It gets boring, and it's very hard to do. Because you want the big runners. How many times last week I took it off, market with 30 points, 40 points. I take it after a point. And that's one thing I'm working towards. And that's what I'm actually building another part of the site here for intense future trading. So I'm going to be kind of launching that next week. It's part of day trading. It's under the umbrella of Day Trading Radio. You guys get it and everything. All the members get it for free. But it's more of a focus for the futures. My futures chart up there all the time. I want to take these setups and I want to force myself into them. So I have a set of rules. It's called the Futures Trading Challenge. And I'm just going to apply every rule. It's going to be a rule-based, no emotion-based, all rule-based. All the way down. I have the exact rules. I'm posting those. Meaning, the type of divergence, 1, 2, only 2 and 3 star divergences, 5 contracts maximum, but I can arrange those any way I want. It's a challenge, and we're going to continue to do that each week, and we're going to beat each week's goal. And there's some other cool stuff. I'll explain it. We're going to get back to the community here. Every time we break a record, a daily record or whatever, we give a member in our chat room a spin at the wheel to win a prize or cash or whatever. So that's something coming. Hopefully next week, if I get my stuff together. But this is, I want to be able to force. I need that to kind of, force me to pay more attention to this. You know, I see opportunities here, and I said, man, these are just money opportunities. Would I pass this back if I saw a $50 bill laying on the ground and on the sidewalk? No, I'd probably, well, I'm not going to push an old lady over for it, but I'd run for it. This was a nice, beautiful divergence there. And it had a nice move up. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, that's what we want to be in front of. And I want those to be alerted. I want people to be able to see these real time. I mean, look at that. That was a good one, too. Look at that divergence. And that one. And this is where we are right now. So there will be times when there is no action, you know, and it gets very choppy. And I always say that 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock time frame, I hate it. It's my worst time frame to trade. It does give you setups, but I just tend to try to get myself, you know, preoccupied so I don't have to deal with it. But, you know, being a trader, you're always looking at maybe something. This keeps on banging up against the VWAP. I still feel there's a shot of us trying to break through this. And the other question is MDGL going to run at the end of the day? Maybe people think the results are going to be released on a Friday. I don't know if does that usually happen, Friday releases? That would be kind of bad news. But I think on FDA results, they got to release them right away. I don't know if they're allowed to disseminate them within the company. Hey, Bill, did you hear the trials came out excellent? We're going to get approval. Oh, all right, thanks, bud. Hey, you wouldn't believe what I just heard today. All right, well, as for stocks going into next week, all depends. If you think this market is going down and we're going to break down, and what I'm leaning towards that 60-40, you know, 60% to the downside. I'm leaning towards that. I would be very, very cautious on starting, you know, getting into anything too big. But if you think, you know, we're close. We're close. Maybe we get one more flush and a fake out. A lot of people are calling that 3,200 to 3,000 level, which seems a little drastic to me. So I do like some of my position plays here, even though some of them seem to be still the value plays. The snowflake down here still looks pretty good. It seems to be holding at 145. The earnings are behind it. It looks like it wants to go higher. I mean, it had all the chance in the world to sell off. And earnings are again, it's starting to move back up. This should break us through that candle, which is 148, and take us out of this channel. It looks good. It looks good. So going into next week, this one looks probably one of the best ones right now. SNOW. But a lot of volatility going into the Fed thing, so it could drop too. Not to say it can't drop. That's what the big if is. This doesn't matter. The news matters. It might be a bullish chart, but it'd be great if news came out and it knocked these stocks down. This would be one of the first ones I'd get into. It's already proven it wants to go up. Question is it going to get knocked back on some news before going back up again? If it doesn't, if the market turns, this is one of the ones that are going to go first because it's holding up pretty good. So either way, you know, we're very close. But it only takes to Tuesday to see where that might go. But that's definitely something on our radar. Net is the other one, which I feel like we almost lost that opportunity yesterday. It started taking off, closed around 49. Still trading around 49. It actually had a little divergence that we pointed out a couple days before. And we did get a nice pop off of that. So another one that's near the lows, starting to turn back up. I am hearing those crickets coming alive here. Let me see what's underneath this. Oh, there we go. There's that PHVS. That's a wild one for this week. I tell you that DWIS, I call it a what do I call it? A micro penny, even though it is a penny. But there is micro pennies out there. But this DWIS is actually held up pretty good at 20 cents. It has a very strong chart about it. It's just something about it. It's just no sellers here, no nothing. So, kind of interesting to see if this pops a little bit further. I'm in at 8 cents, so I'm just saying, I made it this far. I'll see where it's going to go. I'm thinking, hey, this thing can one day be 40 cents. I don't know. It's just about ready to break out. This is gonna move if it breaks out of this 22 rate. I want to put an alert in here. Let's see here. Let's put a trend line in here. Keep an eye out for this. Breakout alert. All right, let's take a look at some of the big ones. Of course, I still like the Shopify. It did give it back today. It popped up to 140. It looked really good. At one point, it was showing relative strength versus the market, and eventually everything just gave up, and it all came back down. So not a good end of the day on that one. You can see the rising trend line underneath this, and there is the possibility of that breaking down. The big base is still there. We'll see what happens next week. Let's take a look at Google. And, back down here off the pullback. If you consider this a low in Google, you usually buy the first pullback. Now, this went up pretty fast. It didn't really pull back. We'll call this the first pullback. And we'll watch this level. I mean, we're coming down to that gap resistance area. And then we have the gap support here underneath us. If it fills that gap, that's support 89 to 91-ish. And we're at 93-ish. So I think you could get a little pullback here. I think it's definitely a buy on the pullback. I don't think we're coming back down here into the 80s. Well, remember this thing did split 20 to 1. 20 for 1 back here in July, so. Here's Apple. Apple, again, kind of coiled up. It's oversold. Staying within this range. It's kind of pushing back up. It's right under the 20-period moving average, but it's definitely oversold. Doesn't get oversold too often without a bounce. There is these lows down here in a lot of stocks. If there was some kind of, not a big black swan event, but just a tiny black swan event, something enough to kind of spook the market. Taking out these lows and everything. Good example is that Kathy Wood's arc. It's still, I could feel like this needs to break down before the market even considers going back up. I mean, look at this. It's laying right on the lows. I just feel like there's a candle, kind of a capitulation candle in a lot of these stocks, and what's going to cause that? Maybe it's the CPI, maybe not. But that after that happens, then I'm very interested. Right now, I'm very cautious to the upside. I think we have to really pick our spots here and stick to the short-term futures trades if we can. But, the big ones, we did mention Dollar General before. Everything's, a couple of stocks are looking pretty good. I'm doing my scans. Of course, I'm doing my scans. There's only one divergence. It's not really a divergence. That's that PTC. It's not much of a divergence. Decent pullback. It's holding the 50 software application, but these are a dime a dozen. It seems like. The other one I have a decent position in. Some calls and stuff, which hasn't really worked out. I'm kind of frustrated because I do know it's going to work out probably right when I get out. Hanes brands, you know, not the most sexiest company. They own that Champion Sportswear also, and probably some other brands. The low here. This candle low today, you can see there's a little turn up here, and that's usually the start of a divergence. And I was saying, all right, that candle came down, probably took out or matched those lows, and the stochastics were pointing high and didn't really dip down. I don't see any, and it really stretching it here. You know, I'm not really, stretching that and saying, oh man, that's a divergence. You know, you don't want to do that. I'd rather see a real good, healthy divergence in the stock. But this is a stock that's been in this downward drip. It's actually in a nice falling wedge pattern. Back here, the insiders got into it. Where was that? I think the insiders were in here. Let me actually double check that right now and see if there's been any more insider action on it. Here's the FinViz market map just for Friday today, and you can see energy stocks are down. Tech is neutral to up, so is banks. Tesla is up, nice bounce on Tesla. And everything else is really mixed and flat. All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the HBI here. I'm just looking fast. I'm not trying to find, but it does have the falling wedge pattern, which I tend to like. And then we had, they always have these pop-up ads all over this. So if you use this site, you just have to kind of X them out. All right, so it's all September 12th, all through September. We had insider buying on this. And not a lot, but it seems like they were, everyone was out across the board. So it was like cluster buying. Everything from the chief executive officer to the directors, to corporate secretary and CCO. So I don't know what this was all about, but I circled it on the chart just to kind of keep that. We were going through a lot of divergences at that time, and that showed. I mean, a lot of insider buying at that time. That one came up. I'm in a Loan Depot. I watched that one since October. I said, wow, that's interesting. And it did move up a little, pulled back, and went sideways. Just, I'm doing my scans right now. Just popped up on my scan here, 172. It's gapped up a little, held a little again there. Just interesting. No position or nothing. Just an interesting setup here. And again, I'm just going through this, just going through a list I have. I have all different lists on my TC2000 thing, and I kind of just scan through these. Here's Square, which is, man, we'll talk about a dead stock too. Yeah, snow has at least some range and stuff. I do like the snow on any type of weakness next week. Yeah, everything seems to be on. I'm hearing that popcorn come in too. Boston Scientific continue to push a little. And that's starting to break out. That 46 area I had as a kind of a big area for me. And we're kind of getting through that right now. DWAC is holding 21.72, still holding up there. And one day I'm going to look at this stock. It's going to be $10 or under. But it's holding good strength. Baba here still looking Boeing looking good. Again, we do like the net around 49. That's a divergence. Actually, that was one of the better divergences last week. Not many. That's a good divergence. Look at the GTLB here. That was a divergence too. And it had some earnings and it popped. Hearing some selling coming in here. So again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I wouldn't be in front of this market until after Tuesday, or at least kind of keep very selective levels here. And for me, I think we're going to analyze it on the go when the market's selling off, and we're going to see if the market sells off, and we see stocks that are bucking the trend or not selling off. Those will be really the good candidates for the big bounces. The MDGL, again, you got the artificial news coming in, so that's going to give a catalyst to that. And then in the pre-market trades, we're going to continue on those. And the futures trades, which right now there's nothing. I wouldn't touch this going into the last half hour. And that's just me. There could be divergences setting up. If I do see one up, I'll point it out. Like right over here, there was a nice divergence. At 2 o'clock to 2:10. Look at this. So this is the setups that you have to take. You have to take a high degree. This is the angle here. It's about 38 degrees, 33 degrees angle. That's huge. Now you're saying, well, this candle's lower, but this is really important is closing prices. So we always look at a closing price divergence, or we look at candle divergences, like this, but lots of times it really is about the closing price, and even on that candle's lower, that closing price is still lower too. Back here. So I always look at the closing price. This could be just wicks, stop runs, and sometimes they're even just bad fills. So you look at the average. Now the market here is selling off a bit here. I could hear that. But I wouldn't put too much into this. It could pop right back up here. What time is it here? 3:27. So how do you guys like the outfit? Or the camera? Is it it's distraction now? You can't. Lululemon 326. All right, let's just finish off this. I'm going to put out another video explaining the next segment here, this new futures thing I'm going to be doing. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm still putting it together in my head, but I have the framework, and I want to talk more about it, and maybe get some feedback from some people, from you guys. But remember the CM, the one we like here going into next week. I hate that it's Friday. How many people could say that? But right at the end of the day, we'll get the moves and stuff. I'm like, But I'm looking at the CMMB. And get a little volume coming into it at the end of the day here. Not much. It's still under the radar. I got multiple calls on it. Telephone. Blue Horseshoe likes Anacott Steel. So that might go right at the end of the day here. We'll keep an eye on that. We got a little movement in MMAT here. It's $1.42. It's definitely come back down. The other one, that sister stock of it's really trading is almost done with that. The CMMB, though, I think we're going to pop here at the end of the day. I'll leave it at that. I mean, we're going to be here early Monday. As the best bets going into next week. Before Tuesday, it's hard to say, but I am liking that snowflake down here. I do like the NET off of that divergence. And, of course, the cheaper ones here, the CMMB here, does look really good here under the radar. We got under the radar. Blue horseshoe. Market here right now is selling off. We're back down to the main pivot, and the S&P is down about 13 in the quarter. I wouldn't be surprised to see this market gap down on Monday and just kind of trap people in before the number. If the number is bad, it gap it down more, and then you're stuck. So be careful in front of this number. I will catch you. I want to do a release video, so keep an eye out for another video. If you have any questions, reach out, ironaction@yahoo.com. And I'll catch you guys Monday morning.